everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghoul Dude, and today I wanted to give y'all a tour of my Phylath, the World Sculptor. And this is my take on a landfall strategy. I really just want to make a bunch of plants. So let's get into a little bit about Phylath. Phylath, for 4 a red and a green, you get a 5/5 legendary creature elemental. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 plant token, creature token for each basic land you control. Doesn't have to be mountain, island, forest. It has to be any of those. So if you can steal somebody else's basics, it's just as good. And he has a landfall trigger. It says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target plant you control. Now the arena version works a little bit different because it gives it trample. But I really fell in love with this deck, trying to put it together and playing it on arena and transferring it over to paper. So I wanted to share that with you guys just a little bit. Starting off with the ramp, because this is a landfall deck, so we're going to need a lot of landfall ability triggers. Starting off with Wayfarer's Bauble, Adventurous Impulse. Crop Rotation is really good in case we want to look for a specific land, which we will be talking about later. Along with Awaken the Woods, it's just a powerhouse card in this deck. Farseek, Into the North, and yes, we are playing some snow lands. So yeah, I had to opt for the Into the North. Rampant Growth, look at that beautiful Mirage foil. Mirage basic Rampant Growth. Then we got a I believe that's a promo, F&M promo, Sylvan Scrying. Got that a while back. A Cultivate, a Kodama's Reach, and now we get into the non-instant or sorcery ramp. Lotus Cobra, Secure a Tribe Elder, Azusa, because, you know, dropping in extra 2 lands is ramp, right? Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Fertilid, Topiary Stomper, and then we have one small piece of ramp that's not really like permanent ramp. It's an enchantment, Cryptolith Right, because, you know, when you need a little bit more mana and you have a bunch of plants that are 0/1s at the moment, why not tap them for mana? Now you remember they have to be unsick to be able to tap them for mana though. So how are we going to protect Phylath? Well, we're going to give him a cloak, which also makes him unblockable. So if he can get big, we're going to be in for some fun. Another card of note that is an artifact is the Crucible of Worlds, because you like to be able to multiplay all of those cards, especially if you have a way to play multiple of them back. Elysian Caryatid, taps for mana, but also is a plant, so you could buff him up. Bloodline Pretender, this card is slowly becoming one of my tribal MVP favorite cards to play, because as it comes in, it becomes a champion of the parish, any type of tribe. It becomes the champion of them, because it just gets bigger and bigger the more you play them. I can't tell you how many times I've chose insect, or multiple times I've chose plant, because, you know, Phylath is a plant maker. But if I'm playing Scoot Swarm ahead of this one, it gets really good, because it just gets huge. And because it's a plant, it doesn't matter if you choose to name it as something else, it still has Changeling, so it's still a plant, so you can give it the +4/+4 whenever you need to with Phylath. Grum Gully, to get all those creature tokens into the battlefield a little bit bigger. Tireless Provisioner. Now here's one that's really good, because with this, every time a land enters, you get 2 triggers off of Phylath. It's like, okay, well, stack them. Now a plant gets +5/+5 instead of +4, 4/1/1 +1/+1 counters. A Rampant Rejuvenator. This one's a really good one too, especially if you get this out early and you can give it the counters, because eventually it'll just be so much whenever they finally kill it. it'll just bring every land out of your deck, and you're just going to have a bunch of bigger plants. Renata for another Grumbly effect, but it doesn't count humans. Ancient Greenward for another one of those Crucible of World effects. And if you play a land, it triggers Phylath again. So that's doubly good. Briar Hydra right now is a plant Hydra. It's in the deck because it's plant, but it's slowly falling out of favor because of it only has one or two niche situations where it's really good. The niche situations are if somebody has, like, you have a Chromatic Lantern in your deck, it makes all of your lands basics of the basic type. Or if you have any of the new cards that change all of your lands to basics. That's where this card gets really good, especially even if you're in a 2-color deck. But for right now, I'm still debating on either I want to take this out or leave it in. And then we're getting into some of our heavy hitters of the deck. Some of the ones that are going to finish the game or are going to help us push back a little bit harder near the end of the game. Starting off with Scoot Swarm, because you know we're going to have more than 6 lands. Duh. Ashaya, Soul of the World. Ashaya is overlooked and I think pretty overpowered nowadays, especially because Ashaya says every non-token creature you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. Nowadays, board wipes are especially considering non-land permanents. All of your creatures now become lands at this point, except for tokens. But it just skips over non-damage based effects that will wipe anybody else's board. Avenger of Zendikar. Nyx Bloom Ancient, because who doesn't want triple mana from a bounce land, right? Roaring Earth. This one I've played with a lot, and I realize it's just so good. But not just for you. It says, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. You can be like, well, I don't need this Fertilid, but I like the land on it that I can get. Let's put that land on him. And if you have enough mana, you can constantly just keep cycling a Fertilid just to get a land, put a counter on him, get a land, put a counter on him, get a land, put a counter on him. Then at that point, he's just infinite. And another card is Second Harvest, because if we're going to have a lot of plants, we're going to need even more plants, because why not? And now we're going to get into our card draw. And the first card is going to seem a little anticlimactic because it's a Skull Clamp. It's everything that this deck hates because it wants to have as many plants as possible, make them big. But in the off chance we can't make them big, we get to kill them off and draw 2 cards. As many times as we got them. Faithless Looting, because why not just throw some lands in the graveyard to pull them back later. Thrill of Possibility, same reason. Tormenting Voice, did I say same reason again once? Valakut Awakening is really good in my opinion. It may just be me, but this card can do work. Either you play it as a land, if you're missing a land drop early game, or you get a wheel +1, but it's not a wheel, it goes to the bottom of your library. So if you're trying to save those cards in your hand, you can stuff them in the bottom for later. Garruk's Uprising I consider a card draw because when it enters it does draw a card, and if you can keep making creatures enter with 4 power, you can keep drawing cards. Big Score, Unexpected Windfall, yeah, we're making treasures, but you know, treasures make mana too. Harmonize, here's one of the big ones. Return of the Wild Speaker. This can be really good or really bad depending on what you have on board. Because let's say you've let your Bloodline Pretender grow huge. Well, it doesn't matter, because if you want to try and use this and get the most out of it, and your biggest creature is a Bloodline Pretender, you're going to go to the next one. Or maybe draw none if you don't have any other creatures. Because Changeling is the thing. And then we have Shamanic Revelation, because, you know, plants are going to get big in this deck, so why not gain some life off of it? And then we come to our removal. Never Narrows Disc. Doesn't say lands. Pretty good to me. Blasphemous Act. Seal of Primordial. Beast Within. Return to Nature. Nature's Claim. Lignify, because if it can't hurt me, it's not my problem. Bow Wilderness, if it can't hurt me, it's not my problem. And I consider Heroic Intervention removal, because if your opponent is planning on alpha swinging on you and you just make all your stuff indestructible and hexproof, unless they're exiling it, that's just game over for them in the long run. And Overwhelming Stampede, because if we have huge plants, it's not going to matter what anybody else has. If we got one huge big boy, that's all that matters. Now, I did decide to put a combo in the deck, and it's really just a combo if multiple pieces, other pieces are out on the board. But it's a 3-card combo. Excuse me. But it's a combo of Kodama of the East Tree, where if another permanent enters the battlefield under control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana value from your hand onto the battlefield. And what we're going to do is we're going to constantly bounce Gruul Turf back to our hand. Well, just by itself, it says, hey, you can keep going. Well, with that, we can keep making rocks with Tago. And yeah, it does say you gotta equip or tap, sack, this creature deals 1 damage to any target and equip 1. But, you know, it just keeps letting us make rocks. Well, them rocks allow us to trigger something. It trigger the Kodama again. So we can just infinitely make our plants huge, if we have any. And if we have a way to do it, we can draw cards and all that good stuff. But that's the only big combo of the deck. I really haven't seen any other ones besides maybe if you can, like, I've seen some synergies in the deck to where, like, if you play Awaken the Woods and you have an Evolution Sage and a Renata on the battlefield, it just makes all of your new forest dudes from Awaken the Woods huge. But now we're going to get into the non-basics of the deck, starting out with some of the less flashy ones, like Blighted Woodland. Guildless Commons is also a sub out for that, but I prefer the Gruul Turf because it's green and red. Kalani Garden actually makes another plant, so, you know, plants are plants. Evolving Wilds, this hilariously large text body Terramorphic Expanse is just probably one of the best trades I've ever made, because I just love this thing to death. And I only have one, but it's probably the funniest thing that I have. Fabled Passage, Cabaret Courtyard, and a Myriad Landscape, because multiple land drops cool too, right? And then, like I said, I am running the snow basics for the deck. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I really appreciate everybody that likes, comments, subscribes, shares, shows your videos to your friends. I really appreciate it. I can't thank you guys enough. And I plan on trying to keep this up as long as I can, you know, for as many decks as I got. Looking a little thin. I might have to start borrowing more people's decks around my groups. But once again, I really appreciate it. And that's going to be it for today, and I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.